Hi everyone, welcome to Chapter 1 in our textbook and any of the other related readings that are required for this week. This is the first part of the presentation for this week, and it is entitled, What Does It Mean to Be a Leader? So first, let's think about these important questions. What is leadership and why is it needed? Then let's consider this question. What does it mean to be a leader? What does it mean to be a good leader? Leaders are in many different positions in organizations, the community, and life in general. Leaders are not always the supervisor or manager, or they're not always the person taking charge of a project. A strong leader may also be a good follower. In fact, a strong leader should and must know how to follow in order to be a good, effective leader. Leaders do not maintain the status quo. They press for change. And indeed, social workers are called to be change agents. We have a responsibility to become leaders because leaders create change. Our stated goal for our profession is to promote positive social change and to work for social justice. To do that, we need to lead change in our organizations, our communities, and our society. Sometimes it's hard to know how to define or describe what leadership is and what a good leader looks like. However, we know it when we see it. So these are the things that we're going to talk about today. So the learning objectives for this part of our semester and this chapter are to understand the full meaning of leadership and see the leadership potential in ourselves, in yourself and others. Recognize and facilitate the 6 fundamental transformations in today's organizations and leaders. Identify the primary reasons for leadership derailment and the new paradigm skills that can help you avoid it. We also want to be able to recognize the traditional functions of management and the fundamental differences between leadership and management. And we want to be able to appreciate the crucial importance of providing direction, alignment, relationships, and qualities of a good leader. And we want to be able to explain how leadership has evolved and how the best approaches can be applied to the practice of leadership. So as we strive to achieve these objectives today, remember, we will be applying all of our leadership conversations to the context of social work. Why do we need leaders? Without leaders, without good leadership, our institutions and society would basically fall apart. People need someone who emulates hope that they can solve problems and make good decisions that will make things better. People need someone to alleviate fear and uncertainty, and people need someone in charge to blame when things go bad and or hail whenever something goes well. So what exactly is leadership? The definition provided to us from your textbook is basically a definition that focuses on the leadership process itself. And it says that leadership is an influence relationship among leaders and followers who intend real changes and outcomes that reflect their shared purposes. So influence means that the relationship among people is not passive. However, also inherent in this definition is the concept that influence is multidirectional and non-coercive. So it's voluntary and it is reciprocal, not necessarily hierarchical. The basic cultural values in North America make it easiest to think of leadership as something a leader does to a follower. However, leadership is reciprocal, like I said, and in most organizations, superiors influence subordinates, but subordinates also influence superiors. So it's mutually, it's a dynamic situation. Leadership is dynamic, it's didactic because there's mutual relationship involved in the process of leadership. The people involved in the relationships want substantive changes, and leadership involves creating that change, not maintaining the status quo. In addition to this, the changes sought are not dictated by leaders. They're not coming from the top down, but they actually reflect purposes that leaders and followers share. So there's a common vision that they are all vested in, that leaders and followers are committed to and dedicated toward working on together. Moreover, change is toward an outcome that both the leader and the followers want, a desired future or shared purpose that motivates them toward this more preferable outcome. So again, it's that shared purpose. It's intentional, it's reflective, and it is a dual relationship between followers and leaders, and it's all for the same cause. However, like I said, sometimes good leadership is also about keeping things that work well in place and being a role model for others to follow and want to emulate. So yes, leaders are about making positive changes and changing things for the better, but they also know when to keep things going when they're working well, given the environment and context in which it's happening is still sustainable. And that's what makes a part of being a leader as well, is when other people want to replicate what you're doing. When you're influencing others' behaviors outside of your own organization or institution or community or whatever, that's also a sign of a good leader. So leadership aligns with general social systems theory, right? When you think about it, negative entropy, which is a core characteristic of social systems theory, is all about social systems always striving toward growth and development. And leadership is in an everyday situation. It's a way of acting and thinking that has little to do with a title or a formal position in an organization, and more to do with results and outcomes of specific processes that are meant to create change. Okay, so this diagram comes from your textbook, and it talks about what leadership involves. And you can find this diagram on page 5 in your textbook, and it talks about how leadership is a people-focused activity. It's not just about like pushing papers or filing paperwork or making widgets or anything like that, but leadership is about building positive and influential relationships where each person desires to work together toward a common vision or purpose, like we just talked about, that shared purpose. So each of these circles in this diagram represents a key concept in what leadership involves. Influence, which we talked about just previously, and intention, personal responsibility and integrity, change, which we've talked about as well, shared purpose, and followers. You should be able to easily reflect upon these and identify how these circles have been discussed throughout the chapter, as well as the purpose and connectedness toward leadership. what are the qualities you envision that might be necessary for leaders to hold? When you think about what a strong leader looks like, or what does strong leadership involve, what is it that you think are good traits for a leader to possess? So some of what you'll find in the readings or the literature at large on leadership talks about how qualities of strong leaders include things like influencing others to a common vision, persuading people, getting buy-in from others, to all be vested in the same interests. It also includes knowing how to follow, which I've mentioned as well, that a good leader also needs to know how to be a good follower and to set an example for others. It is about being humble and seeking advice from others. Strong leadership encourages collaboration and builds on teamwork concepts. It involves being a good listener, an active listener, and being honest, being accountable for your actions. It also highlights other people's accomplishments, not just your own, but a strong leader acknowledges the achievements of staff or other employees and colleagues and coworkers, and shows appreciation for others as well. It's about being open to feedback and constructive criticism, and it's about being concerned for the greater good above their own self-interest. Strong leadership also often entails the ability to compromise and encourages cooperation. So these are often the same kinds of qualities or traits that are involved in being a strong follower as well. And again, leaders must also know how to follow. So when you're around leaders, try to determine what traits and skills they possess. Watch how they relate to not only their subordinates, but also their superiors, right? So people that have even greater authority than they do. Think about how trustworthy or visionary they might be. Are they humble or are they self-centered? Do they bully and intimidate, or do they inspire? Would you trust them? Would you follow them? These are the kinds of questions we want to think about when we look at leadership and what it involves. So one of our readings also specifies what social work leadership looks like specifically. So not just leadership in general, but leadership within the field of social work. And so the main ideas that Karen Haynes describes in her article are that social work leaders are future focused, and as social workers, to be successful, we must look beyond the moment to chart client care. It's not just about documentation. It's the bigger picture, looking at, what we're doing right here and now, this small piece of the puzzle, how does that fit with the bigger picture? So, and how does that fit with our goals and our vision for the future? So being future focused. It's about developing our own blueprint for our careers. So for both working in and leading teams, again, being both the team member and the leader and the follower. Clearly, every situation will be different, so we must set guidelines and benchmarks that can be adjusted to help us reach our desired outcomes. And we also must be assertive. Assertiveness is an important trait for social workers to have as well. And we must be assertive about what we need from others to help hone our skills and expand our portfolios. Lead but be a part of a team. We have talked about that multiple times already as well. And look for the strengths and weaknesses of those around us. So that's how we can really negotiate effective and balanced teams, and really being able to maximize our internal resources by utilizing the strengths of each team member and really finding ways to complement and supplement each other's strengths and weaknesses. So these are all of the, or not all probably, but these are some of the characteristics that identify good social work leadership and things for us to be aware of and strive for as we continue to develop ourselves personally and professionally.